Welcome, everybody. I am back for the another chain in the utility series. This video is going to switch gears a little bit and deal with XDC, particularly with supply chain solutions. It's not the only solution that XDC is working on. For those who are unaware, XDC is on the XinFin network and blockchain, and XDC actually stands for XinFin Digital Contracts. So supply chains are just one of the things that they're going to be working on in the future. And at that kind of 8, 9, 10 cents per coin right now, pretty good price, and has been kind of on the lower end if you're looking to get in for something a little bit cheaper in case some other coins have run up on you a little bit quickly. Good value, good bargain. I'll explain why as we go through this by giving you some real world examples of what I went through in my experience on the supply chain side. So outline, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. Before I was a teacher, I was in industrial management. I'm going to show you kind of the ins and outs of that operation and how it dealt and handled supply chain issues and solutions. And then I'm going to switch gears into what blockchain can do for supply chain solutions, particularly using XDC as an example. And then I'm going to look at, finish this off with some final thoughts on some future and business opportunities. If you're just using this one example of industrial management, you can expand this quite a bit. I'm going to go over where this could head and what industries this could affect. I've probably left a lot off, but again, this isn't meant to be exhaustive, but just something that can at least give you a springboard and a point to leap off of, if anything. So prior to becoming a teacher, I worked for a company in New Jersey back in the 90s, early 2000s. That put me through school so I could actually get my bachelor's degree so I could teach. And it was in industrial management. And it was when you're dealing with industrial management, particularly in the world that I was, which was industrial burners, everything's measured in eighths, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. It was all the raw material that we would bring in, these like brass and copper and sometimes just, regular metal bars. And we would change those metal bars into these little tiny burners that would produce flame for our customers, because our customers were in the plastic industry, the metal industry, and the light bulb industry, and the glass industry, I should say. So they needed our products in order for them to produce their plastic and produce their metal and produce their glass, because our burners helped treat their products for their own quality control and quality assurance, QA/QC items that they had. And our business had been around since the 1870s, so we had become kind of the standard in the industry because we were the first of our kind. And our mission was basically, like I said, to take that 3/8 diameter brass bar that was 6 feet long into a machine shop and make industrial grade burners. And those were our customers, as I mentioned before. And just to give you kind of a visual on what this looked like, we would take brass hex rods and turn them into glass-fired burners. That's what those rods would look like. We'd get them in bulk, pretty much, from the supply house. And then, if you can see on the right-hand side, they were hex because we were able to manipulate them to screw into certain little circle ring burners, and then those 8 to 10 or whatever on the burners, and then our customers would do their own business on that. But those things wore out after a while. They weren't they were sturdy and they were stable, but we were manufacturing these things and shipping them all around the world just to make sure that the glass, plastic, and metal industry could continue. So this is kind of the operation on how it worked, and I'm going to kind of go over the supply chain and just industrial management just to give you that example now that you've got the visual for you on this. In New Jersey, we would have that machine shop in the back, and then we would have a front office. They were connected. And what we would do is take that raw material, and we'd make 100 burners because a customer placed an order for them, $25 a piece for 100, let's say. So the front office would create the packing slip. Then we would ship the burners to, let's say, XYZ company in, let's say, Pittsburgh. And at the same time those burners shipped, those 100 burners in that box by UPS, the front office would mail the invoice out, knowing that they should roughly get there around the same time. Because once they received them in Pittsburgh and the invoice, we usually worked with what's called net 30 terms or net 45, net 60. This is typical business to business, where even though we did all the upfront paying for the raw material and paying our workers to to get the burners out and ship them and then have pay in the front office to get them out there. We would give them 30 days to pay so they could use our burners to make money in order for them to mail us that check for $2,500 or whatever it was to pay for those burners. Now, 30 days later, XYZ in Pittsburgh mails that $2,500 check to New Jersey, and then we cash the $2,500 check. And that was usually the way it worked and many customers, many shipments going out all the time. I'm just going to give you one example of how this would happen to kind of wrap your head around it. This was our operation. Now, old world took a lot of days, took a lot of waiting for that check. And then when we cashed at the bank, it would take 5 days for the bank to actually validate it and make it liquid. So interesting, if we had XDC or blockchain solutions available for this, this is kind of what it would look like. We would still have the machine shop in Jersey, we'd still have the front office, we'd still box the 100 burners as well. And we'd still ship the burners out to the XYZ company. But instead of creating an invoice, we would actually create a digital contract through the XDC XinFin blockchain. And in that digital contract, we would make sure that once those burners are received in Pittsburgh, PA at the XYZ company, we would create that contract to say, okay, as soon as that package is scanned in Pittsburgh, once scanned and validated and verified that the package arrived, immediately that $2,500 payment would be triggered on the XDC blockchain, sent from XYZ in Pittsburgh to us in New Jersey, and they could still use their burners to make money because that was their business model. They would not need to mail a check, and what that XDC blockchain solution would do would eliminate the net 30 terms, eliminate mailing invoices, and eliminate cashing checks and waiting for the banks to actually validate it and make it liquid. And for those of you who have bought and sent XDC to other wallets or even your own private vault, your cold wallet, the longest I've waited for it to go from one end to the other and be liquid is about 9 seconds. So as you can see, the net 30, net 45, net 60, the contract can still stipulate that, but there's a lot of middlemen and unnecessary steps that get taken out simply because we created that digital contract on the XDC blockchain for this supply chain solution that we're looking at. We're not waiting nearly as long for the money to come through for payment to be rendered for services that we already spent and front loaded on our end by shipping these 100 burners out to Pittsburgh. So this is one item of many that XDC is looking to solve, but it's a big one. And I know this because I worked in that field, and it would have been wonderful to have XDC as an option, either on the solution that they have or even some software that could handle the scanning and then the payment rendering. It would have made definitely our operations a lot easier back in the day. So let's look at a before and after for this. You get the old world way of doing it. There's some things that don't change. We had to order those raw materials and those hex bars and those rods. It took 7 days for them to get to us between the order and the time we received them. It took us maybe 10 days to create those 100 burners. And then UPS ground was, 3 days to ship from Jersey to Pittsburgh. That was kind of normal and the standard. So nothing changed on that end. On the blockchain side, I'm just thinking of it from my own business model. There could be solutions that help out the raw material side. I'm not going to go there right now because I'm just giving an example of what I saw. So that stays the same. But on the old world, it took 30 days for the company in Pittsburgh to cut and mail that check because they had net 30 terms. It took 3 days till that check reached us in New Jersey by the postal service. And then another 5 days after we cashed that check to be validated by the bank and liquid from their bank to ours. Whereas on the blockchain side, like I said, the longest I've waited for XDC to transfer over from wallet to wallet, about 9 seconds. Shipment received, payment rendered, it's scanned in, it's boom, the button's pressed and the contract's executed. We're paid the $2,500 based on the fact that we did send that to them and ship it to them. Worst case scenario, I could see probably 2 hours because the one thing they want to do is have their own quality control, quality assurance, QC/QA. They want to make sure that the 100 burners are in that box. They want to make sure that none of the burners are defective physically. They want to make sure, maybe test a certain percentage and a sample of them to make sure the burners are effective and working properly, things like that. So maybe they have a process in place in Pittsburgh, for a couple hours for their QA/QC guys to go through that. And then once they do that, then they scan it through the Zinfin network, and then the payments rendered once they reach that, or whatever the arrangement on the raw on the digital contract could be. It doesn't have to be once they scan it. They could pay $500 once it's scanned, and then pay $1,000 in 15 days, and another $1,000 in another 15 days, whatever the case may be. But what it's doing, it's giving a lot of solutions that were just not there before. And as you can see, the difference on the old world, the days it would take to get from raw materials shipped to us getting paid was 58 days. Whereas on the right side, if you look at the XDC blockchain, now you're talking about 20 days, 2 hours and 9 seconds, total worst case scenario. Big difference. Big difference in the world of business to business transactions, and definitely supply chain when you're looking of cutting 30 days out to when you can actually get paid and be liquid for those services rendered. So what problems are they solving? Well, cash flow is the big obvious one, for the wholesaler and or the manufacturer, because that means we could pay the raw distributor and the supplier for those rods a lot quicker if we had the $2,500 in for our own operations. Production tracking, all of this is recorded on the blockchain, as you're setting up that digital contract, sending that data back and forth, where anybody can see it, where it's you're accountable because it is out in the open. Accounting is automated and not necessarily manual anymore, so that makes that a little bit better for those people paying, accountants, accounts receivable, account payable. It doesn't mean you won't still have those people in the office, but they'll be a little bit more productive because they won't be mired down in paperwork and administrative minutia, at least at that point. Liability, for the QA and QC prior to scanning receipt of shipment, you don't want to just close your eyes and make sure the UPS scanner guy is what is executed on the contract. There will probably be some software internally in the receiving department and the QA QC department once they verify it. And 2 hours is just, I'm throwing it out there because XDC moves so fast, but it could be 24 to 48 hours. Still better than net 30, net 45, and net 60. And errors and omissions, because these things happen too. What happens if we sent 90 burners instead of 100 or 97, or we sent 90 that were effective and 10 that were defective when they found out? Well, in business to business and supply chain, this is usually handled as an example. If 10 burners are defective and it's recorded on the blockchain and they're $25 each, then 25 times 10 is $250. That's a new credit contract on XDC can be created, or some other arrangement. Usually I'll say, hey, look, the next shipment we send you, we order these things once a month. On the next shipment, just make sure that it's executed, that the new XDC contract on your next shipment is crediting $250 because 10 of those burners are defective, or some other arrangement. Usually business to business people, are reasonable, with these things. They don't want to piss off vendors. You don't want to piss off customers in this world anyway. So let's think about the future, because I want to put your thinking caps on this one, because when we're dealing with supply chain, we're dealing with business to business. Retail and customers usually are on the receiving ends of any problems with supply chain issues, but the ones that make it happen on the day-to-day is usually business to business, producer to distributor, distributor to retailer. That's usually the way it works. So I just gave you the industrial manufacturing example. What about the automobile industry and the auto parts industry? Is that a pretty big one? I think so. Could you imagine a similar dynamic happening in the automobile industry, with parts being shipped from the manufacturer of those parts to the ones who are going to be selling it? Very much so. How about wholesale food and grocery stores? Maybe you got distributors, you've got wholesalers, you've got restaurants, wine and liquor. Maybe you are a working in the restaurant industry and you are kind of a wine connoisseur, or you're learning the business of distributing liquor. Could this be something that you could do as a consultant and start your own consulting business to show businesses how they could save money using XDC blockchain solutions? Sure. Farm to table businesses are another one. I see a lot of those groups with organic food doing kind of a cooperative, where they'd order it from the wholesalers to save money, and then they distribute it to a team of moms looking to save money among their own neighborhood. I've seen it happen. I've been a part of it. So those things are possible. Pharmaceuticals and biomed products, big one. Probably the bigger ticket items that you're going to see if you're going to go into sales on this end, or maybe even solutions on this end. Hospitals, pharmacies, home healthcare. All of those could benefit from having something like this as part of their solution to save them time and to save them money and to increase their cash flow and velocity a little bit more quickly. Let's look at some other things. Cleaning products, Merry-Maid services, hotels, business offices, industrial complexes. Industrial complexes are easy because they're still trying to sell commercial real estate to tenants. They could have someone could go in and show them, hey, look, you can make this part of your package to sell commercial space, to say, look, you got a whole, distribution system for paper products, toilet paper and paper towels and whatever other paper products might be, used by offices and industrial complexes. Hey, look, this is part of your rent. So, as long as you're not using above a certain amount, this is included in with it. And it could be one of those perks to get businesses actually to come in and actually be in their industrial complex or in their business park. A lot of things you could do with that. Pet supplies, everybody loves taking care of their pets. Retail stores. Here's the interesting one, because will there be upstarts that use blockchains to save money for supply chain issues? Will Target, Walmart, and Amazon adapt? And we look at Target, Walmart, and Amazon, at least over the past 10, 15 to 30 years, as being like American staples because they're so big they can't go anywhere. But there were a couple others, that were big as well, and if you have some uptail restart box stores or online stores that use blockchain to save money and lower their overhead to put those other ones out of business, think of Netflix. I remember the 90s to the mid 2000s when Blockbuster was the only show in town. Mom and pop video stores were going out of business. Blockbuster was the king of the land as far as that's concerned, and laughed at their little upstart competition idea with Netflix. But let me tell you something. By 2006, my sister had a Netflix subscription and introduced it to me, and it changed completely the way I actually consumed movies. It wasn't me going to Blockbuster hunting and browsing for something that I might want to watch and have to watch it through the weekend. Now this stuff was being mailed to me, and I could literally watch it whenever I want, return it whenever I want. And once you change that behavior like that consumer behavior, the ticking time bomb, it's only a matter of time before something big on the hill like Blockbuster goes out of business, which they have, all except one. Could Target, Walmart, and Amazon not adapt, laugh at this whole crypto blockchain thing, not realizing what's around the corner, and then fall down as well? Starbucks is another example. For those who have tasted their brand of shit coffee, they were really big probably about 25 years ago in inner cities as they expanded. And they were the cookie cutter, nice place to hang out and bring your laptop and get some work done, until some of these mom and pops started popping up in the inner cities, and they started making their own syrups with real vanilla bean. They started being a little more cozy as an environment as opposed to the corporate Starbucks environment. And it changed the way people were viewing quality coffee, because I think we'd agree that I don't think anybody here considers Starbucks the pinnacle of fine coffee. But some of these local ones that were more connoisseur brand, Starbucks has been going out of business in the inner cities a lot, at least in the South where I was, over the past 5 to 10 years. And what you're finding Starbucks doing is their model is, we're just appealing to Joe and Mary six-pack on their way to work. Let's just put them on interstate exit ramps and entrance ramps with drive-throughs so people could get their caffeinated fix before they go to work. Where now the urban center and the inner cities are having more of the mom and pop locally owned coffee shops that are littering the landscape more than Starbucks ever has. I think their model changed because behavior changed. They didn't adapt to it. They were sticking to we're the king of the hill. But I've seen more Starbucks go out of business in the past 5 years, probably because of COVID helped with that, but also because the competition is just that much better. I can rattle off about 10 local coffee shops that I would go to and drive to out of my way long before I would ever go to Starbucks. So think of it this way: the future could be what we're looking at, and this was just one example of supply chain from 25 to 30 years ago when I was working in that industry. So, conclusion. Getting this grip of cash doesn't mean your work just stops. This bull run is going to give you options to choose your destiny And by doing that, I'd like you to think more like an entrepreneur, just by some of those examples on the previous screen, not as an employee. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. There's nothing wrong with making money to put into these plays so you can cook it for a little bit and then get out. But the purpose of being an employee, I want you to start thinking this way. Be an employee so you can learn the operations and get into the operations or even the sales side of any business, even if it's just commission. If you have money coming in from crypto that's paying for your home and your life, what the hell do you need a paycheck for and a salary for? Do commission only. And in 2 years of working commission only, you'll have every skill that you'll ever need anyway to succeed in this kind of environment and this kind of economy. But do it to learn it so you can start your own business. If you're into auto parts and cars just in general, and you want to learn more about the business, do work as an employee to learn that operation, and then start your own consulting firm or start your own business with it, and use some of these solutions that are going to be coming down the pike anyway. You'll probably be ahead of your time if you dig into it enough. So research those industries, take advantage of this merging tech, and I'd say chart your own path. A good grip of these coins are going to give you the resources to chart your own path. And at the end of the day, what's better than having your own path that you can literally come and go as you please into your own office? You make your own hours and you decide whether you want to work that day, or you want to go surfing at the beach, or you want to go hiking through the mountains, or you just want to hang out with your family. Either way on what happens with this coming up, just think it a little bit differently as we're looking at this. So I hope this helped, at least kind of maybe geared you to what solutions could be out there on the blockchain side, particularly with XDC. The future is almost here, whether we're ready for it or not. So don't be surprised, be ready. Good luck, everybody. See you at the top.